We all know how Game of Thrones ended. The extinction of dragons, the downfall of the Targaryens, and the rise of a broken kingdom. But what if I told you that the seeds of their destruction weren't planted by King Joffrey or the Mad King, but centuries earlier by the very people who built the Empire? House of the Dragon isn't just a prequel, it's a tragic blueprint of how absolute power rots from the inside out. The brutal civil war known as the Dance of the Dragons is hitting a point of no return, and today we are diving deep into the darkest secrets, hidden prophecies, and massive details that change everything we thought we knew about Westeros. If you're a true fan of George R.R. Martin's universe, you know that nothing happens by accident. From subtle Easter eggs pointing directly to Jon Snow, to the terrifying truth about why these dragons are acting out of control, we are breaking it all down. Make sure to stay till the end, because point number 3 will completely change the way you rewatch Game of Thrones. Let's get into it.
Let's start with the real heart of the show, the toxicity of the Iron Throne. In the original Game of Thrones, the enemies were clear: Lannisters versus Starks, humans versus White Walkers. But here, the horror is deeply psychological and heartbreakingly personal. We are watching childhood best friends, Rhaenyra and Alicent, turn into bitter political monsters. Viserys wanted peace, but by leaving a vague succession, he built a throne out of glass. Look at how the narrative forces us to choose sides, yet shows us that both sides are flawed. Team Black and Team Green aren't just political factions, they are two sides of a coin spinning into madness. Aemond Targaryen's unpredictable chaos, Aegon's desperate need for approval. Every single character is trapped in a chess game where the prize is a seat of cold, hard swords. The show masterfully handles this tension, making every conversation feel like a ticking time bomb. Now, let's talk about the true stars, the dragons. In Game of Thrones, Daenerys' dragons were essentially weapons of mass destruction that obeyed her every command. They felt like an extension of her own will. But in House of the Dragon, the dynamic is completely different and much more terrifying. These dragons are distinct characters with their own traumas, ages, and terrifying personalities.
Think about Vhagar, the oldest and largest dragon alive. She has survived multiple wars and outlived her previous riders. When Aemond Targaryen claims her, he thinks he's the master. But as we saw in that devastating Skies of Storm's End sequence, when these ancient beasts decide to unleash hell, their riders lose all control. The CGI and sound design don't just show us fire-breathing monsters, they show us ancient, unpredictable forces of nature. The Targaryens think they control the dragons, but the reality is that dragons are the ones holding the leash. Perhaps the most brilliant element connecting this show to the original series is Aegon the Conqueror's prophecy, the Song of Ice and Fire. For the first time, we learned that the Targaryens didn't just conquer Westeros out of greed. They did it because Aegon foresaw a terrible darkness coming from the north, a darkness that could only be defeated if a Targaryen sat on the throne. This changes everything. Think about the irony. A secret prophecy meant to unite the realm and save humanity from the Night King is instead weaponized to cause a civil war. The very war meant to protect the bloodline is the reason the bloodline becomes weak. When you realize that the dagger Viserys carries is the exact same Valyrian steel blade Arya Stark uses to kill the Night King centuries later, it gives you literal chills. The storytelling here weaves the future and the past beautifully.
Now that we understand the prophecy, let's look at the characters who are driving this war forward. The beauty of this series lies in character evolution. Look at Aemond Targaryen. He started as a bullied second son with no dragon and transformed into the most feared warrior in Westeros. His glow-up isn't just physical, it's psychological. He is the perfect parallel to Daemon Targaryen, dangerous, calculating, and fueled by a lifetime of resentment. On the other hand, we see Rhaenyra's transition from a reluctant heir to a fierce wartime queen. The grief of losing her children has stripped away her patience. Even Aegon II, who never wanted the throne, is now consumed by the arrogance of the crown. The show brilliantly displays how war forces these characters to butcher their own innocence just to survive. But characters are only half the story. To truly appreciate this universe, we have to look at the dark lore of everything. In House of the Dragon, we see far more ancient Valyrian culture than we ever did in Game of Thrones. The language, the blood marriage rituals, and the terrifying concept of blood magic. The Targaryens aren't just royals, they are dragon lords who believe their blood is closer to gods than men.
This magical connection is exactly why the dragons obey them, or so they think. The show drops subtle hints that the doom of Valyria happened because humans played God with magic they couldn't control. And now, by fighting each other with dragons, Team Black and Team Green are repeating history, marching straight toward their own doom. It adds a layer of cosmic tragedy to every single battle. So where does this leave us for the rest of the season? For the book readers of George R.R. Martin's Fire and Blood, the show has already made some massive, shocking deviations. Characters who were outright villains in the lore are given tragic depth here. As the tension reaches a boiling point, the upcoming episodes are set to feature the most brutal dragon versus dragon action ever put on television. No one is safe, and no alliance is permanent. Ultimately, House of the Dragon has successfully stepped out of the massive shadow of Game of Thrones. It has created a legacy of its own, proving that a family's internal war can be far more destructive than any army of the dead. As the dance continues, the history of Westeros is being rewritten in Fire and Blood.
As the dance of the dragons reaches its peak, one thing is certain. There are no heroes in this story, only survivors. House of the Dragon has successfully stepped out of the massive shadow of Game of Thrones and created a legacy of its own, proving that a family's internal war can be far more destructive than any army of the dead. But now, I want to hear from you. Do you think Rhaenyra truly deserves the throne, or has the war changed her too much? And more importantly, whose side are you on? Team Black or Team Green? Drop your wildest theories in the comments below. If you loved this deep dive, don't forget to hit that smash like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. Until next time, Valar Morghulis.